travelers along the path of the beam. I am known on this level of the tower as Jaime and Fuego, and pleasure join me here for a bit of palaver on Hail to Stephen King. That's right, y'all. You can just call me Fuego for short, and I am so stoked to welcome you to the horror show where I do this program all about everything El Rey every Terrifying Tuesday and Spooktacular Saturday, unless there is something like a film screening that is jumping in the way. And this week, it's not jumping in the way. We thought originally the Annabelle, whatever the new Annabelle film is that's coming out, Annabelle Comes Home, I think it's, anyway. I thought it was a Tuesday night screening. Turns out it's mañana. It's tomorrow night. So no interruption in this week's broadcasting of Everything Cy King. So this is another episode that I've been thinking about doing for quite a while, and since I honestly spent the last couple of days finishing up rereading none other than the first entry in the Bill Hodges trilogy, I looked to my left to see if it was on the nightstand area, and nope, it is not, but Mr. Mercedes is the book of the month, and so since I spent the last few days kind of chug-a-lugging back through that for a reread for its 5-year anniversary, and on the last Saturday of the month here, it is going to be a live stream all about that very topic. But yeah, so I was like, you know, I have a cache of different ideas where it can really just be it's an idea that I've wanted to just knock out, especially with doing all of these different little Stephen King anthology bits, like, okay, he did this for Monsters, he did this for Tales from the Dark Side. I've been slowly kind of sprinkling in these as I go through all of my production notes and episode ideas. And so this is one that I've been meaning to do for a while, but with some coverage I'm finally officially going to be giving you the breakdown on here at the end of the video. It was only befitting to finally get around to talking about Mick Garris's Quicksilver Highway, which is actually a crossing of the streams, so to speak, between none other than Stephen King and Clive Barker, who I would say in 1997, when this was initially broadcast on television and then it was later released for home media, probably the two biggest names in horror, and had been, despite the valiant efforts of Mr. Dean Koontz. Yeah, Barker and King are probably, and have been since the 90s, like, the two biggest names in horror. And in 97, I think that was probably still the case. Now, some others have come into the fray and onto the plane, and yet there's obviously so many people before, if we're gonna, you know, talk, you know, Poes and Lovecrafts and Bradburys and, you know, various others of that accord. But, yeah, so Quicksilver Highway, written and directed by Mick Garris, but it was essentially him just writing a screenplay and putting together a framing device for one story from King and one story from Barker. And the Stephen King story was none other than Chattery Teeth, that to give some information about that one, so King had been a beloved reader of my favorite releasers of Stephen King deluxe editions of his novels and various other awesome authors. And they also have a magazine that they put out as well, so shout out to Blue and Richard and, you know, the entire team behind Cemetery Dance. So King had been apparently reading Cemetery Dance for quite a while, and in 1992 he decided to send them an unsolicited story, which was Chattery Teeth, and it was later collected a year later in September of 1993 for the Nightmares and Dreamscapes. Not one of my favorite Cy King short stories, but it did receive positive feedback from people. But this is a story that I think in a lot of ways, it just made, it was scarier on the page, and when trying to bring the idea of, you know, those like teeth, like the cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha, like, you know, with just the gums and the teeth and everything, and, you know, it's like gag gift type stuff that's been around for decades now at this point. I don't know if they went back even before the 70s and 80s or whatever, but I know some of the first times I saw them was growing up as a kid in the 80s, and so 80s and 90s. But yeah, so the whole premise behind this is that there is this traveling salesman named Bill, and he stops off at this rest stop in the middle of this nasty, like, dust storm kind of thing that's going down. He's on his way to LA, and he stops at this, like, you know, like, spot to get gas, and when he's almost there, though, he almost runs over this hitchhiker, and then lo and behold, hitchhiker shows up as he is buying this mysterious pair of chattery teeth that not only are made of metal, so they're like got some serious heft to them, like paperweight status, but they also have their own weird little like feet. So, I mean, kind of creepy in design on screen, I guess, but the whole idea of this set of metal chattering teeth, you know, having a life of its own, and lo and behold, hitchhiker attacks our buddy Bill, and teeth attack said hitchhiker, and it's really that simple of a premise. Now, if you read the actual short story itself, which is much, much longer, I'm actually curious now because I did not reread the short, and it's been a few years, and let's just look together, y'all. I want to say this one is in like the 20 to 30-ish range. Let's take a peek. Okay, so 179, so okay, so 15, so yeah, it's an almost 40-page story, you know, and just, you're obviously going to get so much more backstory. Very similar to when I did The Moving Finger a couple weeks ago, and that was also adapted as like an anthology type thing to Monsters. It just doesn't translate as well, but the story works so much better on paper because of the fact that you get so much of the internal stuff with Bill, and with the fact that he did have this traumatic prior incident with a hitchhiker, and so that's why he's weary of picking this guy up in the first place. And it's just, you know, I don't know, you get all those additional pages to kind of peer into his mindset and his frame of thinking and everything, and that makes for a much better story, obviously. And on screen, it just comes off as silly, and it's not particularly gory or anything like that. I think it could have been, you know, and there is one cool scene where, you know, actually there's a couple scenes where, since I'm not trying to spoil the story or, you know, the anthology entry, there's two different bodies at various parts in the story that are being like dragged out into the desert by this set of metal teeth with feet. And, you know, those I guess are like slightly ominous and whatnot, but I mean, the cast is interesting. You've got Veronica Cartwright, and I know she was like a supporting player in The Birds back in the 60s, I want to say, but she was definitely a big player in Alien, the original Alien, and then in the Invasion of the Body Snatchers sequel, the one that had Donald Pleasance in it. So she has a role in this, kind of a cameo type role, and so that's cool. And then the dude who actually plays the hitchhiker, I want to say he was on Grimm. Monroe, maybe I want to say. I haven't watched like a ton of Grimm, but I totally recognized him from that. I know he was also on Prison Break, and he plays like the skeevy hitchhiker dude pretty well. And I also must say that as far as I may not have liked just how this story could be adapted, because it's tough to adapt it and not make it cheesy and kind of lame and hokey, but it's still well directed. The one thing I will say, and people hate on Mick Garris from time to time because they don't think his adaptations like Desperation and The Shining, which was, you know, the remake of The Shining that was done for TV and scripted by King, but I actually really like his version of The Stand, and that is one thing I will say, is that the score, which is done by, I'm trying to remember his name, it's Mark Motherbro. Anyway, it's a dude from Devo, and at this time in the 90s, like, he was doing tons and tons of scores, everything from animated stuff like Super Mario World to, I mean, I was just looking at his just list of scores and stuff that he did, and he actually got a Primetime Emmy nomination for the score for this, and I must say, it's very reminiscent of the score from The Stand, and the fact that it's very, like, kind of bluesy, kind of like, you know, you're out just walking in the middle of nowhere, you know, in the Southwest, on the highway, very... I can see why he ended up adapting Desperation later, even if there's a lot of people that don't like that adaptation and just don't think it went for the jugular. And it had the constraints of television, both budgetary and as far as like censorship goes and stuff like that. But I do like Mick Garris making this sort of like westerny, you know, just like highway of hell type vibe thing. I dig it personally, you know. So the look, the score, and even the acting isn't bad in it, you know, from all players assembled. It's just the story just so much better on paper. It just comes off as kind of whack and just kind of like kiddish and stuff. So I honestly recommend, I mean, hey, check this out and, you know, make up your mind for yourself, obviously. But Kathy Bates does the audiobook for Chattery Teeth, which is really cool. And also, if you haven't checked out this mammoth monster of collected stuff, Nightmares and Dreamscapes. But, so, yeah, that's the first story. And this is where I have to backpedal just a wee bit and mention that I actually don't mind the framing device in this. I just wish the presentation, like the stories to present, had been better. Because you have Kristopher Lloyd as this guy named Aaron Quicksilver. And so he comes across this married couple. Well, it's actually just the pregnant bride when he finds her, because the vehicle's broken down, husband leaves to go get some parts, and, you know, the now wife of his stays behind, and Kristopher Lloyd shows up like honestly very Charlie Manx status in this. It looks like an old Rolls Royce, man, and it's got the creepy, like, just black tint, and he's dragging this big trailer behind him, and he's got this weird, like, red, like, kind of mop wig thing going down. But Kristopher Lloyd is essentially the crypt keeper of this tale, and you know, he brings the bride into his crazy trailer that looks much bigger inside than it appeared on the outside. There are supernaturally forces going down, and he just starts railing off to her about how he's going around on Highway 666, and you know how you know, there's no darkness, there's no light without darkness, and there's no good without evil, and no devil without God. It's all very kind of cheesy. Once I keep circling back to that. It's just very, you know, just tropey and by the books sort of stuff. But Lloyd delivers it very well. Kristopher Lloyd, honestly, one of my favorite actors, man, and I wish he was doing more. All the way back to Taxi with my parents, which was the first thing that I saw him on. And then, you know, obviously Doc Brown, and one of the more recent things I saw him in, and I thought he was terrific, I Am Not a Serial Killer. Fantastic film. Love that one. And so, yeah, he's a terrific actor, and he... Once again, just like the other actors in the first segment, the Stephen King Chattery Teeth, they are trying their best to elevate what just isn't that strong of a script. Even if it is being well directed, the storytelling is just not that captivating and not that unique. But I like him. I like Kristopher Lloyd as the framing, devicey storyteller, you know, the witch, the crypt keeper, you know. I love those EC anthology stuff, and that's why I also love the Twilight Zone, and you know, in its various incarnations, except for the 2000s one with the Korn music. So, yeah, I mean, after we get done with our first story, and also, another cool thing I have to mention, the way that they frame this is that, so Lloyd's character, his Aaron Quicksilver, he starts telling the story to a character he has encountered, and then it kind of jumps into that story, and being played by the same actor / actress, but a different character. So in the first one, the groom is actually the traveling salesman in Chattery Teeth, and then in our second story, we have Matt Frewer, who was none other than the Trash Can Man. Yeah, so he had worked with Mick Garris in the TV version of The Stand, and he was also on Max Head, some crap like that. I can't remember particularly, but oh boy, was he also on a few episodes of Star Trek? I might be getting him confused with somebody else, and I know I've done this before, but Max Headroom, I want to say the show was called. Yes, but he will eternally be my life for you. You know, I think he's a terrific actor, and he actually brings his performance in this saves a very, very cheesy Clive Barker story. Now, I'm not that familiar with Body Politic or Politique or whatever, or The Body Politic, but and I believe that is the title of the story, that the Body Politic, yeah. And so imagine if all of them, like a bunch of different hands in the world, started like getting a mind of their own, and they want to have like a Cousin It uprising type of shit going on. And our main character is this doctor played by Frewer, and he's a surgeon, so his hands are incredibly important to him, and all of a sudden they just start getting a mind of their own. And I must say there's cameos in this one. There's a John Landis cameo. There's a funny cameo from Clive Barker himself, where it's when the surgeon's hands are starting to first take on the mind of his own. He like chucks a scalpel, and it whizzes right past Clive Barker's head, and he's like, "Hey, what did I ever do to you?" And he like kind of looks at the camera and winks, and you know, you're just like, "Oh, that's Barker breaking the fourth wall, yeah, man." So it's a funny cameo, and this one is definitely, whereas Chattery Teeth is cheesy in my estimation without necessarily trying to be cheesy, the Body Politique, whatever, it is very cheesy and very deliberately cheesy in my opinion. Like, the hands start talking to each other, and the line, just the voice in which that they are communicating, where it's like, "Escape the tyranny of the body!" It's just, oh my god, it is... I can't even help thinking about it. I just rewatched it, and I can't help but even thinking about it without laughing, because it's just utterly laughable. But I feel like the joke is supposed to be there. It's supposed to be darkly humorous, and ironically, whereas they didn't really go for the gore in Chattery Teeth, especially when this metal set of like teeth is attacking this hitchhiker, they go for it in this. And I have to give Matt Frewer especially credit for the fact that he gives a performance with like his hand, mind of its own, like Bruce Campbell would have been proud. Seriously, I mean, it is pretty amusing, I gotta say. And lo and behold, he doesn't go at it with a chainsaw, you know, but nonetheless, I mean, he gets chopping, and then in turn, when that hand gets loose, it starts going around and getting all these other hands to start with the minds of their own and everything. And from what I understand, this was only a portion of the story that we get in the Body Politique, which is in the 4th volume of the Books of Blood by Clive Barker. So this is another one where I think that maybe on the printed page, because I haven't read up through I just started my reading for the upcoming Barker at the Moon. That is going to be a new, not weekly series here on the Horror Show, probably going to be monthly, which I'm going to give you information about at the very end here. But yeah, so this is another one where I'm thinking maybe it could be taken more seriously on the printed page as opposed to the cheesiness, or maybe, you know, maybe Barker intended this to be darkly comedic throughout. I know that there's this whole, like, one of the hands becomes like a messiah hand, and even like on our main character, like the left hand has a different personality than the right hand. One's more forthright, one's more cautious, and, you know, just kind of, I don't know. So yeah, this is ham-fisted whack-fest, man. Both of these, but especially our second story. But I do give mad cred to Matt Frewer for his awesome performance. And, you know, once again, I think maybe if Garris just, they wanted to have some sort of like body horror-y kind of connection-y thing, you know, teeth and hands and stuff like that. So I don't know. I'm assuming that these two stories were selected for specificity and with very distinctive and direct reasoning to pair them together. At least to the best of my knowledge, there's not really a lot floating around on the internet about the creation process of this, as far as like whether this was Garris's idea and he picked these two stories, or if these two stories were provided to him, you know, by Barker and King's Camp. That's the one thing that in my research on Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, Wikipedia's different places, I couldn't really find as much information about this, including where it was originally broadcast on TV. Because I remember watching this on TV, so it probably wasn't on cable, in all honesty, because I didn't have cable, and I saw this on its initial broadcast in May of '97, so I didn't have cable until I was 15, so that would have been like the early 2000s, so definitely after this had already happened, so I don't know, but yeah, it's well acted, and it's well directed. So, I don't know, guys, if you haven't actually seen this. Apparently, the Los Angeles Times says, yeah, send a shiver up your spine. Fright Titan Stephen King and Clive Barker, send a shiver up your spine. I don't know, guys. It certainly didn't do that for me, but it offered some amusement, I guess is the best way I can describe it. But that's the tough thing with Anthology, whether it's print or whether it's, you know, just being put to screen, whether it's, you know, the Nightmares and Dreamscapes show that TNT did for Cy King, whether it's My Beloved Tales from the Crypt that is celebrating its 30th anniversary of the first season this year. I actually reviewed all 93 episodes of Tales from the Crypt a couple of years ago, and all 3 movies, so if you have any interest in checking out my love of the Crypt Keeper and all his craziness, that's here on the Horror Show. Yeah, we have an entire playlist for that if you want to check it out, but yeah, it's just, whether it's print page or whether it's an adaptation, it's so often going to be hit and miss. There's episodes of The Twilight Zone that I am nowhere near as fond of, and compared to others like To Serve Man. So, I don't know. Unfortunately, for me, neither of these were particular standouts, but the score and the acting and the direction, even if neither of the stories are particularly frightening or memorable for, you know, any scare factor. So I guess that is going to be the end of the road for this particular video. So yes, I extend a grande gracias. I've been Jaime and Fuego, and you can find me on all social media sectors like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, here on YouTube, but on a different channel. That's right, if you just search Infuegotainment, just like the little logo you see down there. Oh, hi, logo. Yes, you can find all of the non-scarific stuff that I do, whether it's science fiction, whether it's you know, comedy, action, some animated stuff. This past weekend, I reviewed the new Shaft film because I love that shizzle, you damn right. I thought it was funny. What else have I done recently? Long Shot, Secret Life of Pets 2, doing ongoing coverage of all of the Star Wars films in timeline order leading up to the release of Episode 9 in December. This month is going to be Rogue One, which is the last of the films before we segue into the original trilogy, 4, 5, and 6. I've also got some comic reviews up there, the Darth Maul comic, the newest novel called Master and Apprentice by Claudia Gray. So I'm basically trying to make it as complete canon coverage as possible. Prequels are already up there, along with a group solo review and my review of the Clone Wars animated, which I'm working my way through those seasons as well. But obviously, I digress. You are here for the Spooktacular, and on the Horror Show we do 1, sometimes 2 episodes every single day. Cecil Laird and myself just got done reviewing all of the Child's Play / Chucky films leading up to the remake's release this upcoming weekend. That will be up on Thursday evening, I believe, Thursday of this week, here in the middle of June in the deadly desert of Arizona. But yeah, on the Horror Show we do trailer reactions, we do reviews of films, comic books, television series, books, obviously. You know, I've done nearly 170 episodes of Hail to Stephen King at this point, and it has been just an amazing pleasure. Now, here's the announcement, is that the very first installment of Barker at the Moon is going to be debuting here at the end of June, the first set of anthology storytelling that Clive Barker did. But then next month, and the reason I mention this is because at the end of July, I am going to be releasing my review of the debut novel from Clive Barker, The Damnation Game. So, if any of you Barker heads out there, and I know there's a lot of Hail to Stephen King peeps that read both Barker and Cy King, if you have any interest in reading Barker at the Moon, taking part in Barker at the Moon, I should say, the spin-off of sorts, because I already have Hail to the Hill, and then Hail to Stephen King, Run to the Hill. That's what we retitled it. So, this is going to be my third bit of just horror author coverage, and I guess it makes sense because Barker and King are homies, and King sung the praises of Barker with with the release of the Books of Blood initially. So this spin-off of my just book coverage makes sense, and there's one other author that I'm going to be announcing very soon. But I have to focus on Barker at least here for the next few months, because I have picked up copies of Weave World, The Great and Secret Show, and Damnation Game, so I want to start plowing through those. It's just a lot of book juggling between reading a couple Cy King books every month and also trying to read some of this Star Wars coverage, plus comic books, plus watching movies. It's mass madness, you maniacs! But if you have any interest in reading The Damnation Game before the release / review at the end of next month in July, get on that shizzle, y'all. I would love to have you there. Also have to quickly mention the Hail to Stephen King Facebook group. I am the sole admin and moderator on there, so if you want to have some palaver about all things Cy King, over 500 strong, it is a group that I am humbled and honored to be a part of and to just share so much awesome conversation with. You will truly be well met there if you have any interest in Stephen King or want to know more. Would you like to know more? So now I'm going to hit you with the typical send-off and say, until the real of Ka, in this case, comes around once more, hasta luego, sin amigos, and constant readers and viewers alike. I am hopeful that we get to share more palavers sooner rather than later. Say thank you. And until that instance occurs, remember, stay scared. And read Stephen King. Yeah, chattery teeth. It's in this baby.